Today I've been working on this really dramatic cat in pastels, and on this video I'm going to show you everything you need to know about putting the underlayer in with PanPastels. If you like it or you've got any questions or comments, drop them below the video. Right, so to make a start with the PanPastels, or even if you're using pencils, because don't forget you could be doing this with pencils on the side, just filling it in as you would see on lots and lots of my videos. But let's have a look at PanPastels. Now these sponges you can flip around, okay, so it's not just one side you use. After that's worn out, you can flip them around, use the other side. You need to start somewhere. Does it really matter that much where you start? Not particularly. But right-handed probably makes sense to start top left, so you're working forward. But we do have things like glassine paper. That's what comes in between your pastel sheets. Whichever way you buy them, you'll have this. Just cut it up so you can rest your hand. Okay, so it doesn't really matter if we go left to right or vice versa. I don't particularly want to start. I've done that, grey scale indicating where the lights are. So I've got a good idea about the lightest areas. So I can start on something usually I don't go with the lightest area or the darkest. I usually go something mid-tone, so the ear would be probably a good place to start. Right, picked out some colours. That looks about right. It's a little bit too light. Okay, so this is how I would work with PanPastels. So that's magenta tint. Now, a darker version of that, a dark version, is magenta shade. The shade means magenta with a little black added. Tint means magenta with a little white added. So if you buy the straight main colour, which is magenta, you can make this by adding more black. You can make this by adding white. I've got a video on that on YouTube and Patreon. It's going to save you a lot of money. But time is of the essence for me. Buying the set saves me time. Okay, so I can easily make these variations up, because even if you buy all of them, if I had, this, or if I had this one, I know it's too light, I may have to add some grey to it or some more magenta to it or different colour. You never, almost never get the exact colour you want in a pan. You've got to adjust it just like paint. I've got a video on that. As you'd appreciate, this is not a complete beginner type of video. You can see that by the subject, but there are videos there showing that. Okay, so I covered that elsewhere. So I've tried the magenta tint. Test your colours. This is essential. You see how when I'm using PanPastels, the pastel, by the very nature of the applicator, doesn't leave this grainy looking appearance. It's going down into the tooth of the paper and it's making it look lovely and smooth. Okay, I'm looking at that. I think it could do with a bit more of that magenta because it's not quite dark enough, so I'll put a little of that in it. I'll go then to pinky. So I'm going to put in some grey. This is Payne's Grey. So once again, let me show you. Payne's Grey, that's the base colour. Tint just means a bit of white is added. Extra dark means black is added. Okay, so once again you can make those colours yourself. So let's just try a little bit of Payne's Grey in there and see what happens. Deadens the colour. I don't want it too light yet because I want to be able to put my highlights on top with pencils and things. Okay, so that's quite close. And you can do things like this, test this out as much as you want, and then when you think now it's close and you're confident here, put it on. Small circular strokes. This initial stage, things absolutely don't need to be perfect. Goes a little bit darker up here, so I've added some more of the magenta It's got a bit reddy colour or pinky colour, magenta colour. I'll put a little bit of that dark Payne's grey on top. Just deadens that down, look. See, and you can blend it all together. Tiny bit of pressure. Tiny. People say how much pressure you're using. As little as I can. I'm using very little pressure. Now I can adjust these colours later on with pencils on top if I want more accuracy. There. Now I know it needs to be warmer up there. Like I said, I can adjust it with pencils later on. Right. I know it needs to be darker down there, more orangey there. I don't have to concern myself with that yet. Right. Let's just indicate where these things are going to live. Just like taking, well, not just like, it is exactly like taking that previous stage to the next level. Okay, where I was thinking about just the lights and darks with the pencils. Now I'm thinking more about where these colours are going to live and the kind of colour that I want them to be. Test your colours. You see, that's the secret to it. Because the eye plays tricks. Sometimes it's telling you it's going to be one colour, but in reality it's something else. Over here comes more of that bluey grey. The very nature of PanPastels, if you don't load the pastel on the tool and go straight in, means that you don't put a lot of pastel down, so you shouldn't be filling the tube for the paper. So you easily put pencils on the top. Let's just indicate that it should be around there, kind of an orangey colour. It's going to come up in there as well. All of this is going to be refined later on. But got to start somewhere. Okay. While I'm at it, I can see a little bit of pinky colour down here where the light's going to reflect and bounce up. That's a nice spot there. And there. Just so I don't forget that bit. Okay, right. So the greys I found a more kind of bluey colour. So hence the Payne's grey. It's got that blue-grey effect to it. So let's try and get this colour. You know, when you've got your drawing, you're cutting around it, all these spare bits, keep them all. Because that's what's going to come in handy to actually use for test pieces. It's kind of grey, that Payne's grey up in there. See, I'm judging it now against the ear that I've done. Take as much time as you want. Why rush? If you're doing it for a living, that's a different story. But if you want to do it for a living and you're just starting out, then you've got to be giving yourself time to learn the craft. Do not be accepting commissions of anybody, family members, anybody, creating yourself stress until you learn the basics at least, so that you're more confident. that you can do it. Otherwise it can spoil it, take the fun away straight away. And before you know it, you don't want to do it at all. So keep the pressure off. It's easier to tell them straight off, no, I'm just learning at the moment. Plenty of time later on to draw people's pets and whatever they want. This is very much like painting. If you see any of my oil videos, I started with oils, still love oils but don't get enough any time really to do them now. People just want me to teach pastels, so that's what I do. If you see any of my oil lessons, you will see the way I approach it is almost identical. Very, very similar indeed. So here, see, it goes a little bit lighter. See, that's too light, but that's okay. I can put loads of layers on top of this for refinement. It's not a problem. Anyway, I can just put a darker colour on top right now. Subdue that. The more you do this, the more you see colour differences, all these little adjustments between lights and darks and blues and greys and all these things. Right, I know that needs to go a lot lighter. For the light pencil marks to show on top, you've got to have it slightly darker underneath. Okay, so it goes a bit darker down in here. And you test your colours as much as you want. Take your time. We rush virtually everything we do these days. Let's not be rushing this as well. Nothing else we need to do when we're doing this. Now, you may think, well, I have got lots to do. How am I going to fit all this in? I haven't got hours to spend drawing. If you don't spend time for yourself, then the time you spend doing things for others, you're not going to do it as well because you're going to be thinking of this. So let's just do this now. And don't forget, you can stop and just do 5 minutes at a time. People say they haven't got no time. You do literally 5 minutes, put it down, whatever you've got to do, come back to it. Have a little 5 minutes. Perhaps you can you find 3 5-minute sections a day? So then you've done 15 minutes. And people can say, well, that's not enough. But it absolutely is enough. Little 5-minute sections. The beauty of working with pastels is that we can pick it up and put it down. When I was working with oils, then that's not really a thing you can do because you've got to keep, cleaning up after you. So this is the light there. Super light up here, so I'm just dipping into the white then on the corner. It's also very much like sculpting. We're trying to just get that underlayer sort of showing, you know, the actual shape. Squint at your reference and your drawing, because what you're trying to achieve is kind of a blurry look to it, a blurry underlayer. And then as each layer goes on top, that blur will start to get more and more refined. More and more refined, more detail, sharper look. It's just like turning on the focus. That's what we're after, and we'll get that with the pencils. But see how this gradually creating a shape and a form. It's gradually becoming more three-dimensional on a flat surface. And you can push yourself back on the chair. Which also reduces those details that you're looking at. Now some people like to really have a soft impressionistic look. PanPastel's great for that. You can blend and blur together like this. And if you like that, you can stop at any time. Okay, people may want that softer impressionistic look, but then they say, how do I achieve it? I keep going too detailed all the time. Well, you stop earlier. Okay, stop earlier, but also once you get into this stage, okay, rather than reach for the tiny pencils and things, then what you want to do is continue with a tool like this, perhaps a smaller one, okay, because you've got small PanPastel tools as well, but then you go in with your darker darks and your lightest lights on top. Okay, so rather than reach for the pencils, that's when you stick with the larger tools, because that'll absolutely stop you going overly detailed if that's your thing that you want to avoid. I used to do this with oils. When I first started with oils, I was terrible for using a tiny brush with just a few hairs on it really early on, even for my biggest paintings. And those paintings would take me forever to do, and the detail, if you stood a foot away from the drawing, from the painting, sorry, you wouldn't even see that extra detail I spent so long doing. As I got more experienced and realized what I was doing, I used much bigger brushes all the way through the painting, even to the very end. And I didn't lose any detail, only unnecessary detail. Drawings are a bit different because people usually like to get really close up to them. Whereas with paintings, they're usually bigger and people stand back more. Okay. It's very much all of this correcting. It's not mistakes, but let's call it refining instead. It's not mistakes. You're not correcting a mistake. You're refining it as you're going along. because once you've got some areas down, then it becomes much easier to see what needs to be adjusted. Right, how's that looking as a starting point? I can squint my eyes and just look for the main shapes, forms, lights, darks. I'm thinking that's looking pretty good already. In the UK, we've actually got it warm for a change. It's gone up to about, I think it's going to be 24 today, so I'm doing this early in the morning before it gets too hot in the studio. Whereas every other day it seems to have been very cold still. Right. Right, so where's these super lights going to live? By here, bit in there. Just dipping in a bit of white. Right. Pencils are the tool for getting those details in. So I won't do any more with this. Let's take a look, see how that's appearing. Is it looking three-dimensional? Yeah, I think that's really starting to get there. Now I can continue on and do the body in the same fashion. Right, move that across. You know the way I'm doing things now. So let's take a look at the body. Let's match up the colour. Payne's grey and a little bit of, maybe a little bit lighter. And see, the Payne's grey's got quite a lot of blue in there, which is what we want. Otherwise it could look quite dead in colour. I'll go even bluer, I think, with the pencils when I'm refining it. Then it goes really dark down in here. I can see some detail in there, but I'm not worried about that for the moment. Once again, that will be where the pencils will come into their own. So I can even see some kind of purples going on in there. Right, let's put the darks in place first. So it's going to be light there and dark here. Let's get that right. Light there, middle there, kind of dark in here. I'll join up there. And as it goes further and further from the camera, from the reference photo's camera, it blurs even more. That helps with that three-dimensional appearance. And these lines here pretty much go to nothing, barely see anything there. So I'm just thinking more general colours really here. And virtually all of this will then be done with a pencil. I can't get those. I want mine fairly detailed. I can't get it really detailed to the level I want just with pans. So I'm just putting in, you see, just the indication of where this is all going to be. And then up here, I'll go lighter. So that's really quite rough. But I don't want to put too much pastel down. I want to be able to get these pencils to work on top. If I put a load of PanPastel down and end up really filling the tooth of the paper, then I'm not going to get the details on that I want. Right, that's a good start, good underlayer. Now I can come back in and start refining it some more. So the only other thing really to do, so I've got pastel pretty much on almost all of the paper, is to put in a little bit of this underlayer for the furniture, sofa, whatever it's lying on. So all I'm using there, that colour is ultra blue extra dark, so ultra blue with a bit of black in would do as well. So I'm just putting a bit of that in there. So that's kind of that colour around here. A little touch of white if I want to lighten it a bit more. So the shadow comes around there. And then it's fairly dark. Here as well. I can always lighten this on top. You can see that the PanPastel tools help this to be nice and smooth looking. Really gets rid of that paper texture, which for this part is what I want. A little bit of white in there. That's not too far off that colour. I'll touch our colour up later on. And if I want, I can make this, you know, a bit lighter or bluer, whatever. So it could do being a bit bluer, but let's just try, work on the tonal value for now. I can always glaze pencils over that. So it needs to be quite light to help that all stand out. There'll be a dark deep shadow in there. Right. That'll be a bit lighter there. Okay, so that's not blue enough, but that's good enough to start with. So that's the underlayer. You can see it's all quite subdued looking. That's how I want it. All a little bit blurry looking, which is also how I want it. If you wanted to, you know, go for that less detailed, more impressionistic look, it's just another layer really on top. So you could use sticks or pencils or PanPastels rather than going in with fine hair details, which is what I'm going to do, you would then go in instead with thinking more about the tonal range and colours, so just getting more accuracy with it. If you want to learn everything about details and fur texture, you don't want to miss this video.